it. I'm so glad that you could join me today. You know, I'm eager to be fed today.
Excellent.
Great. So before, obviously, that we had to sort out our tech, I introduced myself, 2ndSpring, platform for women who are living curious. And also, do you know what? It comes to that point where you think those challenges of midlife, I do not, if I can help it, want to go through them without any assistance. So this is where somebody like you come in. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Sunayana, and just tell us about what you do.
Okay, so I'm originally a holistic therapist, actually, and it was through my work with breast cancer patients that I began to notice that illness wasn't just about what happened in the moment. There was normally a traumatic event which had resulted in emotions being stored in the body, which then hadn't been processed, and anxiety was clearly part of it. And as I went through kind of my career, I just kept coming back again and again to this traumatic event. And traumatic events are very different for everybody. So some will be really big things like a bereavement, and some could be your child letting go of your hand as he walks into the playground or walks, you know, she walks into bed. For you, that is traumatic. It's not a judgment on what is trauma. It's just you have unprocessed emotions around it. And what I noticed was also that with anxiety, for me, clearly, I feel that anxiety is a disconnection from God, actually. And by God, I mean God's love. Okay, so I don't have a religious affiliation particularly. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, it doesn't matter to me at all. It's about your connection to God, your source. Your soul connection to your source, the thing that feeds your soul. There is a disconnection that's happened because of the trauma and the anxiety that accompanies it. And I didn't understand this, first of all, when I first realized. I mean, I probably knew back in the early 2000s, that's when I really began to understand the connection between the trauma and how it manifests as illness within our bodies.
Right.
And then as I've been a Reiki practitioner since 1999, a Reiki master teacher. And it was kind of through that work and then combining it with the trauma anxiety that I really began to see the disconnection. It was really curious because I would attract a lot of very orthodox religious people. And I'm not particularly orthodox. I'm very spiritual, but I'm not a religious person.
Right.
But the thing that we kept coming back to was a feeling of disconnection from source, a feeling of I'm having to shoulder all the responsibility of daily life and living and manage my emotions and manage my anxiety. And it was too much, you know, and they were seeking unconsciously quite often that road back to their source.
Right.
And so one of the things I flow to people is that belief that you can reconnect.
So now that's heavy.
That's stuff. Yeah.
That's really, really heavy. When you say reconnect, believe, how, from your perspective, do you get people to do that? Because to say it, you know, Sunayana, is to say it, and I'm not going to give my opinions, but I want you to feed me, you know, so that others listening to this could understand. So help me to understand what that would look like.
So it's really, I mean, so if you're in a session with me, it would be through conversation and treatment, okay? But what actually source brings you, however you believe your God to be, I'm going to use the term God for simplicity's sake.
Yes.
However you feel your God is, I believe that God is love, God is comfort, God is coming home, God is all the good that happens, the ease, the flow, the joy, the laughter, the happiness. That to me is what God represents.
The easy.
Easy, yeah. And it's about sort of, like, for example, this conversation we're having, look how easy it was for us to set it up. You know, you saw my podcast with Lindy. That came out on the Wednesday. By the Friday, we'd arranged this, and it's just been easy. Right? And so that to me is like ease and flow. And that always says to me, this is the right path to go. quite often women, I'm in my early 50s and, you know, we're going through perimenopause and menopause and all of those things, and our children are leaving home. And in some cases, women are getting divorced because they're no longer compatible with their husbands or partners.
Yes.
What happens is that ease and flow disappears. Joy of their life disappears. And that feeling of I have to reinvent myself becomes big and overwhelming and hard, and it can feel lonely, you know, because everybody's journey is slightly different.
Absolutely.
As well, right?
Absolutely.
You will have friends who are probably on parallel journeys, but their circumstance is different to yours, so it's never going to be exactly the same. So my role, as I see it as a facilitator, is to help you find the way to bring ease and flow and comfort back into your life, and how to realize that you aren't doing this on your own, that there is a God there just waiting for you to reach out and go, okay, I'm ready for some help. I'm ready for you to show me what my next little nudge needs to be. What's the next little step I need to take? It's not going to be you know, move house, a big step. It will often be something really small.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I've been going through a little bit of, you know, we moved 9 weeks ago. It's been quite frantic. And the nudge I often get is go into the garden and do some potting up. I'm not a huge gardener. I'm not a fantastic gardener, but
just to take that time out.
Yeah.
Just to refresh.
Just reflect. Allow your brain to slow down, reconnect into your body, reconnecting. For me, it's reconnecting into the wonder of nature and how nature thrives. You know, nature thrives no matter what's going on.
Absolutely.
It continues to thrive. So it kind of reminds me of those things, so that when I come back to my work, or if I have to sit at the laptop and do something, which I don't really like sitting at my laptop, I'll be honest. If I have to do those things, but I come back with a fresh perspective and a feeling of, okay, I'm not doing this on my own. I just received the nudge, so let's wait for the next nudge to come in.
Absolutely. So when a say lady comes to you in a mid-50s, as you said, going through the peri, coming from broken marriage, lots of anxiety, not a great believer in a spiritual aspect, how would you then convince this person, or how would you then embrace this person into understanding your body, the temple, is something you can heal? So
the first thing to sort of, I'm a very grounded practitioner. I'm not someone who talks a lot of woo, really. Right. So the way I will always see where the client is, where my lady is, first of all, in that whole spectrum. So I'll meet people who will say to me, I'm an agnostic or an atheist and I don't really believe in this stuff. And I'll have people who are the other end of the spectrum, okay? If someone's, say, not really a believer, I will always start with the really practical things. What are you experiencing on a daily life? Let's understand what the trauma was. Let's be our own detectives. What was the trauma you experienced? What did that create within you? What kind of reaction did you have? Did you have, did you find yourself developing a serious illness? Did you find yourself just becoming very anxious and depressed? What is it? And then we'll work on the physical symptoms first of all. Because through the physical symptoms, you get ease as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I can help you with your backache, or I can help you with, say, your hot flushes, or you need some help with sugar cravings, because I practice several modalities. If those bring you comfort, they will also bring you trust in me.
Absolutely.
And then if I say to you, okay, I'm now going to take you down this slightly different track, and I want you to think about it. It's not my way to enforce anything. My view very clearly is I'm a facilitator of people's health, women's health. And my job is to provide the information, and then you decide if you want to have more conversation with me and delve in a bit deeper, or do you want to park it and then come back to me later and say, okay, I'm ready to talk about this a bit more. That's how I view it.
So it's that client and it's that coach embracing each other, and it's you really identifying what is it that this person really needs. That will enable you to do the best work that you do.
Once I know what their trauma has been, and I spend a 2-hour session on this, we kind of talk, and they also get a bit of a treatment as well, because I want to see how they respond to treatment. So the treatment could be hypnotherapy, it could be Reiki, it could be reflexology, or it could be a treatment I do called the Bowen technique, which is a physical remedial. It's a very light touch physical treatment. And so I'll do a treatment as well, because I want to see how their body will respond to the treatment. And I want to see, are they able to relax at all, right? But I also say to clients, prospective clients, decide if you want to talk to me about the things you don't want to talk to anyone else about. Because that is a really good basis for a client-therapist relationship, right? If you can trust me enough to talk about, I mean, I have to be honest, I'm so honoured for the job I do. People tell me things that they've never told anyone. I had a young lady a couple of years ago who came to me. She was in her 30s, married, wanted kids. She had endometriosis. She was worried that she'd grown up in a house of quite high domestic violence. She was worried her husband and her were going down that road, even though he'd never hit her or anything. She was just worried about certain behaviours they were seeing. And so as part of her work, we were looking at that, and we were looking at how to regulate her periods through reflexology and bring her comfort and change her diet slightly. And I said to her, there's something else that you haven't told me. I knew it, I could feel it. And that's when she said to me in one session, I was groomed as a 15-year-old. And I was like, wow, okay. And I was, you know, that's when I kind of realized the enormity of what I'm doing and how privileged I am to be able to offer this comfort to people, particularly women. And she'd not told anyone, not her doctor, not her husband, not her mum, no one. And I just said to her, we kind of took a couple of sessions, we worked through it. But I just said to her, I think you need to go home and tell your husband about this, so that he understands sometimes why you might react the way you do. And if you choose to, you can tell your mum, but I don't feel that's necessary. I just think with your husband, it would be very helpful.
Right.
And it's not my job then to say, have you told him?
No.
That's not my place. My place is to make the suggestion. She came back to me a little while later and said, I did actually tell him, and he just cried for me, which made both of us very emotional. She was telling me, and she just said it's opened up a side to him that I've never seen, and it transformed their relationship actually, and they now have a 1-year-old.
Fantastic.
So do you see? It's all interconnected. You see?
Yeah.
You know.
Is it, you know? Because sometimes when I think, as you've been speaking, Sunayana, in regards to anxiety, emotions, do you feel sometimes that as I'm going to say women, because we're speaking about women, do you think that we hold on to things, and in holding on to things that harm us, because, you know, as you said, things that are traumatic that happens to us sometimes, we don't like to share it because maybe of being judged, maybe of fear. But do you believe that once we have released it, a healing begins?
Yes, I do. So it helps to understand how your brain works as well. So your brain is this organ that sits inside your head. It never sees daylight. It never is exposed to anything other than what you are experiencing, which is why everyone's reality is always slightly different, because what you're experiencing is not what I'm experiencing. It learns through what you feel, because its main job is to keep you alive.
Yes.
So it's constantly trying to decide, do I need to fight? Do I need to run away? Do I need to freeze? Or do I need to fawn? By fawn, it means to sort of get in with the right people so you'll be protected, okay? Because it's always looking at, am I going to be killed? I need to survive. I need to keep this person alive. So that's its primary job.
Yes.
Okay? It learns through your experiences, and it learns the emotions you've experienced. So and it learns from when you're in the womb onwards. Okay, so if you had your mum, when she was pregnant with you, if she had a great pregnancy, then as a baby in the womb, you would have felt joy, happiness, peacefulness, love, etc. But supposing you had a mother who was very chaotic and had health problems of her own, or was addicted to something, as a baby in the womb, you would have experienced fear and worry and anxiety. Those experiences are stored in your brain as a growing fetus. And then when you experience life for yourself, maybe the first time you went to nursery or to school, and you were feeling a bit, oh, I don't know, your brain goes, I know that feeling. We've had that feeling before. This is how you should react. And so that's when you see the toddler having a complete manic kind of meltdown, a massive tantrum. And you're like, that seems a bit of an overreaction. It's not from its brain's perspective, because it's experienced this kind of anxiety.
Wow.
Right?
I wonder how many of us are going to go to our mums and say, what was the pregnancy like?
Yeah.
Mum, you're carrying me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good question to ask. And I do ask clients sometimes, go back. So, for example, if I take myself, when my mum was pregnant with me, my parents had just, they'd been in the UK about 2 years when they had me. So they weren't quite planning to get pregnant when they got pregnant. My mum and dad didn't really know anyone here, so it was quite a lonely existence. They'd gone from sort of a very comfortable existence in India to a less than comfortable experience here. It was the kind of mid-60s. So there were all the signs of no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, all that kind of stuff they were experiencing. So having a baby in that circumstance was probably not ideal, right? So my mum would have experienced, apart from joy and pleasure of being pregnant, she would have had an underlying fear or worry of what was life going to be like for them. How were they going to cope? And in those days, in the 60s, maternity leave was not as generous as it is now.
Yes.
So you can then kind of, once you know what your journey was like in the womb with your mum, you can often start tracking. Oh yeah, that's when this happened, or that's when that happened. And your mum will say, you'll say to your mum, were there any things that really were remarkable when I was a child? So when I was a child, I used to get tummy ache a lot. Now I recognise that was probably anxiety. At the time I didn't, and no one did. In the 70s, no one thought of it as anxiety. They just thought, just a fussy child, right? So this is how your brain learns. So then if you think about, you've got the physical remembrance of your brain, which is then triggering an emotional response in you. If you can then get to the source, say, of one of your traumatic events, and you manage to understand, okay, I can change my reaction.
Yes.
And I'm going to be open to the possibility of something new. It creates healing.
Yes.
Right? It creates the possibility of healing.
Yes. Yep.
Then your work is to kind of be consistent in your new habits, which creates possibility, moves possibility into probability, and then you go into new outcomes.
Right. So moving on, because obviously of the time factor, when you encounter a client that's just come into the menopause, gone through the perimenopausal and come to the menopause, and things have changed for them drastically, how then, what would be your advice to this woman?
So the first thing to acknowledge is that menopause is actually a rite of passage. When we lived in tribes in caves, we celebrated certain rites of passage. So teenage boys and girls were separated because puberty was a rite of passage. Marriage is a rite of passage. Birthing a child is a rite of passage. Menopause is a rite of passage, right? Menopause represents a freedom for a woman that she won't have experienced for over 40 years in most cases, right? So it is a chance. So that's the first thing, is to actually acknowledge that you have gone through this momentous change physically, mentally, and emotionally. The second thing I always say is actually celebrate it. You know, even if it feels like everything around you is going to pot, celebrate this right, because this is about your body and your relationship with your body. It's changed. So you and your body are going to change, work differently, and need to interact differently. So celebrate your body by doing something that is emotionally important to you. So I'm not talking about a spa weekend. I'm talking about, if there's a goal you've always said to yourself, I'm going to go somewhere, do something, do that thing, that gives you an emotional boost. Okay.
Fantastic inspiration, yes.
So that's the first couple of things I would say. The third thing I would say is, now is the time to really look at your physical health.
Yes.
So what are you doing to support your physical health?
Yes.
What do you need to change to support your physical health? Do you need to be more active, or do you need to change the type of activity? So in your 50s and 60s and 70s, high intensity may not be appropriate, but weightlifting may be, right? So because you want strong bones. So weightlifting is better than high intensity in that instance. Or do you need to improve your diet and bring in more of the omega-3, 6 and 9s so that your skin will remain beautiful? Are you drinking enough water? So these are practical changes. And then on an emotional scale, you need to look at, what is it that's nourishing me now emotionally?
That's where the spiritual comes in as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So are my relationships nourishing me? And I'm not saying, just if, say you identify, say you're with someone and it's not nourishing you, I'm not saying leave that person. What I'm saying is, start the conversation with that person. And kind of go, right, like, we're in a new place here. I'm menopausal. There's no chance of babies, thank goodness. Let's kind of redefine our relationship.
Yes.
Now, if your partner says, no, I'm really happy how everything is, and I refuse to redefine your relationship, that's probably a red flag you need to look at.
Yes.
But hopefully your partner will be like, great, let's start this. And that's an ongoing process of conversation, trying new things.
Wonderful.
Yes. So that's, and then it's also about looking at your spiritual health. Where is it? What is it? You don't have to be someone who becomes religious and goes to church or a shul or anything like that. What I'm talking about is, how are you connecting with God? You know, you can connect to God through nature, through a hobby you're passionate with, through dance, through writing, this weekend I went and spent it, I was up north with some friends. That fed my soul in a beautiful way because of the love and strength and uplift that was there. That is a connection to God. It doesn't mean
absolutely.
Right? It's how are you nourishing yourself spiritually? I came away on Sunday, I was driving back from Harrogate, and my two friends in the car, we just kept saying to each other, I just feel filled up in my heart and soul. My heart feels replete with love. That's godly. Absolutely. That is godly.
Right?
That, you know, I've woken up today and I'm like, boom, 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 with my laptop, and I'm firing on all cylinders because I can feel.
You can feel that. You can feel that energy. You can feel that force around you, and it's really wonderful speaking to you about that, because I always say to many women, in the event that you are not happy with what you have, what's going on at this time of our life, only you can change that. Only you can start that journey to make that change. But to sit and to suffer in that place, you are going to bring anxiety. You are going to bring emotional problems. You are going to encounter going backwards and thinking about things that made you feel bad because you're not moving forward to things that are supposed to make you feel good.
And just going back to your point about when you're suffering, in order to change that, you have to actually decide, I don't want that anymore. Some people get caught up in the suffering and it becomes the norm
for them,
and they forget that they can choose something different. So I often say to people, Because I have people who say, oh, you know, I'm not ready to work with you. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to be ready to work with me. But when you are ready, you will have chosen something different.
Absolutely.
And just by choosing something different, new experiences, new people, new possibilities start flowing in.
Absolutely.
And
with
that's,
the last 5 minutes, sorry to interrupt you, Sana, that we do have, what 3 tips would you give, would you say, will to a client that you feel are your 3 tips that you would say you even abide by?
Yeah, so the first thing is to choose daily. Choose daily that you want to live a life of joy and ease and abundance and prosperity. That's the first thing, because from there you can decide how am I going to live my day.
Right.
So like for me, that's like put some music on, listen to some recordings, do my meditations, my journaling, have a laugh with my teenager, etc. Right. So that's the first thing. Choose every day. What do you want for yourself? Right? And from that, it leads to take consistent action to promote that choice. Right? And the third thing is actually ask for help. There's no reason for you to do it by yourself. I have mentors, I have friends, I go to them quite regularly and go, can we just talk about this, please? And just in that conversation, you get some realizations that you can take away, think about, and then act on. You don't always need someone like me to help you. You are, I say this to clients all the time, you are amazing. You can do a lot of this without me. But what a facilitator does is keep you on track and keeps you accountable.
Keep you accountable.
Keeps you accountable so you don't stop doing the work. But if you wanted to, just make sure you have this really solid group of people who can help you, who are happy to have those conversations with you when you say, I need some help. I need some clarity. I need conversation that will help me understand what I'm experiencing. I'm not talking about conversation that says, poor you, there. I'm talking about robust, truthful, authentic conversation, right? So those 3 things, if you can do those, I think you will find that you thrive more than you can possibly imagine.
Fantastic. And if anyone wanted to find you, how could they find you?
So I have a website, which I have to say is, it feels quite stale to me. I'm in the process of, in fact, today, my job is to write the new copy for my new website. Currently, it's www.feelgoodtreatments.co.uk. I am on Facebook and I'm on Instagram as feelgoodn14.
And you're on LinkedIn.
And I'm on LinkedIn. And I'm on Twitter as feelgoodn14. I'm everywhere, basically.
And they just look for the name.
Look for my name and they can find me. If anyone's, one thing I've been offering this year, which is very different, is I offer, I have a group on Facebook called the Higher Self Connection Collective. And your higher self is the non-physical aspect of yourself. And it's very small, little groups, got 140 people in it. But if you're interested in the more spiritual side of things, that's probably the best place to come and find out more about me from that point of view.
Fantastic. And with everything now moving back, a little bit of ease in going on with this pandemic that we're having, Sunayana, are you going to be doing anything like in the new year, in the future, in terms of, will you be doing any courses as in face-to-face, that type of thing, or are you keeping most of what you're doing online?
No, I'm actually back doing face-to-face treatments in my studio, and I've been teaching Reiki again face-to-face. I'm going to be launching a new course, a group course, which I've not done before, which will... do you know when you can launch something, you're so excited you don't even have words for it? That's kind of where I'm at with it. It's basically aimed at women with anxiety, but in sort of 6 to 8 weeks, it will shift them out of that completely and put them in a totally different place.
Right.
And that will be coming, I think, either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And ideally, I would do it as a face-to-face group program. That would be that's what I would love to do, because there's nothing better than that interaction and that physicality.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So you're great. It's nice to see that women like yourself, that, you know, changing the lives of many women up, and, you know, we've gone through a lot, Sunayana. So I really do thank you for this afternoon. We know so much more about you. I hope I'll speak with you again. I want to know how you're going to be doing next year. In regards to the services, if you don't mind, I'm going to put it up on 2ndSpring.
Yeah,
so
lovely.
those that are interested in knowing more about you, they can contact you directly.
That would be brilliant. Thank you for this opportunity. I love talking about my work. So
the 2ndSpring is a platform for people like yourself to really tell women what you do so that they can access this help. Into this time of life, no one should be alone. They should feel that they do have experts like yourself that they can go to.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. And I hope to speak with you again. You take care. Keep safe. Look after yourself.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care now.
Take care. Bye-bye.